Today I'm going to teach you how to make this flower granny square. These are the colors I'm deciding to go with, and I'm choosing just 3 colors. You can choose up to 5 colors, I would say at most, but 3 is a good starting point. So this is what I'm going to choose to be my first round, and it's going to be the center of the flower. You start off with a slip knot, chain 1, and then how I do my magic circle is I just take my tail, turn it into a counterclockwise circle, and start stitching. And we're going to start with 10 double crochets in the magic circle. Once you get your 10 double crochets, you take your yarn tail, pull it tight to close that center hole, and then to change colors for round 2, we're going to be changing to our petal color of our flower. I just take my hook, put it into the bottom of the very first double crochet underneath the top loops, pull my working yarn tight, grab my petal color. For this one I'm doing white. Leave a little bit left over that you can weave in or tie off later. Put it over your hook and pull through to slip stitch. From here we're going to start row 2. To start, we're going to chain 2 with our petal color, and then we're going to be doing 2 double crochets in the back third loop of every stitch from the previous row. So we yarn over, you're going to flip your work forward. This first one is going to be a little bit difficult to find, but it's there. It's just the first loop underneath your top 2 loops. And then complete 2 double crochets in that loop, and we're going to do that all the way around. So now I'm going to flip it forward, and you can see there's 1, 2, the third loop down right there, and we're going to do just an increase of double crochets in every stitch, and we're going to end with 20 double crochets in this round. I'll meet you back at the end of this round. All right, I have my 20 double crochets around, and I forgot to mention you can go ahead and cut your center color, your first row tail, and just let that hang, and later on you can tighten it up and weave the ends in. So we're going to slip stitch, and we're staying with this color to make the petals, so we're just going to do a slip stitch there in the same color, and then we're going to chain 2. And in this first stitch right here where we chained up from, we're going to do a double crochet and a treble crochet in that same spot. And then in the next stitch over, we're going to do 3 treble crochets. If you don't know how to do a treble, it's just like a double, except you yarn over twice and you go under 2 loops 3 times. So there's 1, 2, 3. And we're doing 3 of them in that same spot. Feel free to pause the video if you need some time, or if you think I'm going a little too fast, you can also change the speed. In the next stitch, we're going to do a treble crochet, and then a double crochet. And then the next stitch right after that, we're going to do a slip stitch. And then we're just going to repeat that 5 times until we get to the end. So I'm just finishing off the last petal. So I'm doing my treble and then my double. And then we have 1 space left over for our very last slip stitch. Make sure you pull your yarn tight. And then we are going to color change to our background color. And for this particular square, I chose this light gray. So I'm just going to leave a little bit of yarn tail, grab my loop, slip stitch, and make sure and grab my working yarn, not my yarn tail. Okay, and then we're going to chain 2 with our background color. And this whole row is also going to be in the back third loop. So we're going to do the thing where you flip forward, find that first loop, We're putting a double crochet there, and then in the next one we're doing a half double crochet, and then we're doing 3 single crochets, and then a half double crochet, and then a double crochet, and then this stitch is not worked in the back third loop. We are doing a treble, but we're doing it in that little hole right below the slip stitch we made in the previous row. So there's the slip stitch. Right underneath it is where we're going to put our hook in, pull up a loop, try to keep it tight, and do your treble. And then we're going to repeat that all the way around, staying in the back third loop aside from the trebles in between the petals. Also, you can go ahead and cut your flower petal color yarn now. All right, I'm about to finish this row. We do the double crochet, and then this is really important. Sometimes the slip stitch can get lost here, but if you put it in the wrong spot, then it will not look symmetrical. So your treble needs to go underneath the slip stitch in that little spot right there. And we're going to continue with this color. So we're going to slip stitch with it into the top of the first double crochet that we made. And then we're going to chain 2. And we're going to do a double crochet, and then a half double crochet, and then 3 single crochets, and then a half double crochet, and then a double crochet, and then a double crochet increase, and then we're going to make our first corner to make our square. We're going to do a treble crochet, and then chain 2, and then another treble in that same stitch. And now we're going to start our sides that are going to be repeated. So we're going to do 2 double crochets in the next stitch, and then in the next stitch we're going to do a double crochet, and then a half double crochet, and then 3 single crochets, then a half double, then a double, and then a double increase, and then do another corner where we do a treble, chain 2, treble. And we're going to repeat what we just did, starting with the double crochet increase, another 2 times. So I just did that side, this side, and my next stitch is going to be the double crochet increase, and then I'm going to do another corner right here, treble, chain 2, treble in the same spot, and then we're going to end with a double crochet increase. And then slip stitch. If you want to change colors here, you totally can. It would give it a nice little different border. I am going to, because I think it looks really cool with different color borders, so I'm going to slip stitch with the color I used for the center. slip stitching with the next color, and I'm going to chain 2, and this whole row is going to be half double crochets. So I'm going to yarn over, do my first half double crochet right where I chained up from, and just to get it out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and cut my gray yarn so it doesn't get tangled up. So I'm going to go all the way down. I'm going to count this first one, but it's not going to be the same on each side. So first we're going to do 10 half double crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then in this corner space we're going to do the same thing on each corner. We're going to do 3 half double crochets, 2, 3, chain 2, and then 3 more half double crochets on the other side of this corner chain 2 space. And now our repeat is going to be 13 half double crochets, and then the same corner, and then we're going to end with 3 half double crochets and then slip stitch with our next color. So I will meet you back after we've done that. I also wanted to point out that sometimes your first half double crochet will get hidden by your corner, so make sure that you're scooting your corner clusters out of the way so that you can get into that first stitch. The count is correct. You are going to do 13. I'm going to prove it to you here. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, and then we're going to do another corner. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, 3, and see how my first one could get lost and you might accidentally go into the next one. You just got to make sure and find it. Okay, and now I'm going to finish these next 2 sides and then meet you back when we do the last 3. All right, I just did my last corner, and I'm going to do my last 3 half double crochets. Now I'm going to slip stitch with my next color, which you could change these last border rows, these last 2 rows, into whatever colors you want. I'm just going to stick with just using 3 colors for this entire square, so I'm going to slip stitch with my white like I used on the petals. No need to worry about all the yarn tails either, because I'm going to show you an easy way to hide them, either by weaving them in or even just simply cutting them. So I slip stitched with my new color. I'm going to chain 1 and go ahead and cut my yarn tail of the last row. And we are going to do this entire row in the back 3rd loop, and it's a lot easier to find on the half double crochets. So your first one, remember you just count your first loop, your second loop, and it's the next loop down. And we're going to do single crochet. So this first one, we're going to start with 13 of them. So there's 1, 2, 3. Once you get started, it's really easy to find them on the rest of the stitches. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then in that corner chain space, we're going to do a single crochet, a chain 1, and another single crochet. Then you're going to repeat 3 times, 19 single crochets in the back third loop, and then do your corners again of the single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. So I'm going to do that all 3 times and then come back. But I wanted to show you that whenever you round the corner, your first stitch is a little bit hidden. So there it is right there, and there's 19. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and our last one right here, 19. And another corner, single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. And I'm going to finish off this row and meet you back over here. All right, just finished off the last corner, and we're going to end with 6 single crochets to get back to the beginning. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And if you don't mind having a knot here at the end, depending on how you're going to be connecting your granny squares, if you're using these for a project, you could just slip stitch to finish off. However, I do prefer to do an invisible join. So I just pull the loop up, make sure and leave a decent amount of tail, like no more than like 7 to 10 inches. Pull that loop all the way through. And I just do this at the end of every square so I don't have to do it later. It makes everything so much smoother and easier. And put it on your sewing needle. We're going to skip that first stitch and take our needle and put it underneath both loops, going from the backwards side towards you, underneath both loops. Pull that, and I like to hold the stitches together because we're basically just going to cover up that first stitch with some fake loops and go back into the stitch that we ended on. Pull that, but you don't want to pull too tight because you don't want it to buckle in. But you see how that now makes it appear pretty seamless. And from here, I like to take that yarn tail and attach it like this to kind of knot together the first and the last stitch with just a simple knot. And you gotta just make sure you're not pulling the faux stitch tight. And then from here, you can weave in all your ends. So I like to start with the one that I just finished, and I just weave in through a few of the stitches of the last row because it's the same color. And you can double up and go back and forth if you want to, but I have found since I tied that knot, just going under a few stitches works well. And then we want to hide all those color changes, right? So I have found that I find what colors are attached to each other from the color changing, and I pull the appropriate tail. So on this case, it's the white one. So I'm going to pull that tight and then tie it in a knot to the color from before, from the row before. And I honestly cut them off because the back side's never going to show. Next one, I'm going to take the yarn tails and pull tight and then knot them. And I just do that for every color change row until I'm all the way done. Next one is this one. This one's a pretty important one because it could look really funky if you don't pull the right yarn tail to just make that look seamless. And just make sure and tie a knot. You can even burn those edges if you want. I don't find it's necessary with decent yarn. Next one is the first color change. I like to pull the petal color really tight. I don't really need to pull the center color because I don't want it to buckle in. So I'm just pulling the white one and then tying it in a knot. And then the very last one is our magic circle tail, which I do knot and weave in. So how I do that is I take my tail, put it on my needle, and I find a nearby stitch and I drag it through, tie a knot, pull it nice and tight, and then I just weave it around the magic circle in between the stitches until it's all the way complete. And then all the way around, and then I go through and I weave through a few more stitches going back the opposite direction, and it is nice and secure. Cut my tail and we have a completed square. From here you can choose to wet block or not, depending on the project that you're going to be using it for. You can also do different color variations. For instance, here is one where I didn't color change for the border rows. It also looks nice. Here's another one, and one of my favorites. So you don't have to do the color change borders, but you can. This is also done with a specific brand of yarn. I'm going to put that in the description of the video so that you can know that the variation is slightly different for this pattern because of the yarn used. It's just a different amount of stitches on the last two border rows, and that's the only difference to use that particular yarn. But you can also do a square similar to this with the same pattern where you don't use the back third loop in case that's not very comfortable for you. And doing that on the flower part would give you a look like this one. I did do the back third loop on the border here, but again, it is not necessary. It just gives it a little bit of texture. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. For more tutorials and beginner crochet videos, please check out the pinned playlists on my profile. Have a great day.